Episode 227. Today, we are going to be talking about and recapping last night's matchup between USA and Canada. As a USA fan, I gotta admit it was kind of heartbreaking to watch. I just find it weird how the first game they play in Montreal, the US wins in enemy territory, and then Canada wins in enemy territory. I just don't understand that, how that works. But outside of that, the game yesterday was just awesome. It was everything arguably you'd want in a hockey game in terms of the pace, the energy. There were a lot of moments where throughout the game where different players took control, and I thought on Canada's side, the one guy who was really noticeable outside of the Connor McDavid goal at the end in overtime was none other than Jordan Binnington, who actually stole a game for the St. Louis Blues playing at TD Garden when he was with the Blues on their cup run in 2019. So you look at how that whole situation played out, and once I saw Binnington making those saves, I was like, I don't think USA is winning this game. Just with the way he was playing, and it just ended up being an odd situation where McDavid somehow was left alone, wide open in the slot, and he got the pass from, I believe it was McKinnon, I could be wrong. And then he got the pass from him and then just roofed it top shelf. He had so much space to work with. He could have maneuvered in tight if he wanted to. But of course, it's McDavid to end it. That's no surprise. I was just surprised with how well Jordan Binnington ramped it up throughout the game. He had to make some massive saves in massive moments. He had some, I would say about three or four grade A's he had to stop against Austin Matthews. Like Austin Matthews had a great game. I thought he was very effective because they elevated Matthews to the Kachuk line. They had him between the two Kachuk brothers, and those two and actually those three together just lit a spark. Something clicked between those three immediately, and it was kind of surprising we didn't see that from that three early on in the tournament. But with Matthews playing super well, I thought this was his best game of the tournament, and I don't know if he's supposed to play this weekend. I know he's expected to play, I believe, tomorrow for Toronto, but I'm kind of surprised because just the way he played, he looked injured. Like there looked like there was something nagging with him that looked like there was something underlying in terms of issues that he's dealing with, and the media is obviously not going to know about it. He's probably going to keep that personally and internally to himself. But when you're talking about Austin Matthews, you're talking about the best player on the U.S. roster, so you needed him to show up in this game, and I think that was essential. Like if their best player was going, the other guys were going to follow. Like you had the Chucks playing well to some degree. I thought they were okay. I think Brady was more effective than Matthew. I think Matthew, especially when he got injured later on in the game and we didn't see much of him from that point on, it it really kind of affected the chemistry, I would say, even more of Brady because I think the first game with Matthew being out, it wasn't as detrimental because the US had the advantage and it wasn't a championship game. So I felt like in this game it just mattered a whole lot more. And I feel like Brady not having Matthew on his line for a good handful of the game and a good ha handful of the back half of the game. I think that just kind of didn't really seem to be super motivating, for lack of better term. But outside of that, like I think some guys that are particularly kind of disappointing for the US were Jack Hughes, which is odd to say because it feels like Jack Hughes is a guy you notice night in, night out. I didn't think he had a good series and good tournament at all. Like he was just he didn't really look like himself. He looked like he was trying to force plays that weren't there, and it just didn't look like it was working in his favor. Vincent Trocheck wasn't that great. I think if you look at their decor defensively, Adam Fox was okay, but not particularly effective. I'd say their best pairing and arguably their best defense combo was Brock Faber paired with Jacob Slavin. And Mike Sullivan talked about it early on in the tournament how he felt like those two together could really light a spark for them defensively. And boy, it sure did. When you look at Jacob Slavin, I feel like he has to be a part of this Olympic team for the US next year. I just feel like it's a must. I don't feel like you can count him out now, especially with the way he played in this tournament. It was unbelievable to watch, especially given the fact that this was Slavin's first time making a big international appearance. Huge, huge, huge set of games for him. He was electrifying to watch. And I don't usually say that about Jacob Slavin because you don't notice a ton of flair or a ton of flash from him, But in terms of the angles, the details, how he's able to mitigate speed, Mike Sullivan, how talked about how good he is defending line rush and the rushes and using his stick to cut ice. He was so good. And I think yesterday was one of the games where he had a few more slip ups, but he didn't really have that many throughout the tournament. It was rare to see from him. He's usually always on point. He always seems to be super disciplined in terms of how he plays the defensive game. And that's his best attribute by far. And he's so reliable there, especially on a pairing with Brock Faber. Those two together are absolutely awesome. For Canada, it was interesting because I didn't notice some of their top guys the early parts of the game, like Connor McDavid, Nate McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Cale Makar were just okay early on in the game. And when you have a team including those guys, like that can't happen because you have to have at least, I would say, two or three of those guys going to be able to create some energy. And Canada didn't have any of that from those guys early on in the game. I think throughout the third and throughout overtime, they were better at entering the zone, transitioning the puck, and being and looking like elite players like they usually are. And elite players, they even have moments where they don't look that good, but it's just rare to see Canada have that many guys not particularly effective. Like we're talking about the best in the world. We're talking about Makar, we're talking about Crosby, we're talking about McKinnon, we're talking about McDavid. Like those guys, at least one of them can't be productive early on in the game. That just shocked me. But through the back half of the game, they're so much better. They're so much more effective. And that's why they ultimately won the game, along with Jordan Binnington looking like the 2019 version of himself in net. He just looked absolutely unbelievable. And even me early on this tournament, I was like, I don't know if Jordan Binnington should continue to get the starts for Canada, but with the way he played yesterday, it kind of over it kind of overshadows a lot of the hiccups that he had early on in the tournament, I feel like. Because for one, he won Canada the championship. I don't think without Jordan Binnington in net, I don't think Canada wins this game. Because he made some massive grade A opportunities and stopped a lot of them in overtime. Well, he stopped all of them. If one ended up going in the net, he would we wouldn't be talking about Jordan Bennington in this case. But when it comes to him and just how he's stopping pucks, like there was so many chances where I was like, "That's going in," and it didn't go in. I was like, "What is going on?" It was Austin Matthews. I'm trying to think of some others. They weren't point shots either. They were either slot shots or slot shots around the net, which is I don't understand how a goalie could turn it on and like he was on a dial. He just turned it on and switched it on so fast. It was insane. And he basically stole them the game. I don't think Canada, like I said, I don't think they win this game without him. Plain and simple. It's crazy because they have so many elite players, and then we're talking about Jordan Bennington as the last line of defense, but he made some really acrobatic saves too. I remember in overtime, he made some really good side to side saves. He was stretching out really well. His glove was unbelievable. How he's stopping shots with his glove was absolutely amazing to watch. It was just textbook in terms of his movement, how he's cutting down angles, how he's tracking the puck, how he's keeping his glove high and keeping his blocker high as well, but not too tight to his body. And he was just great. I rarely say this about a goalie because you don't usually say goalies are exciting to watch, but he was exciting to watch. I would say he's arguably one of their most exciting players to watch in that overtime, just because of the saves he was making. I would say he made at least maybe three, four, or five highlight reel saves just in overtime. Like he made that many good saves, and he was just so effective all across the board for Canada. I'm not surprised they ended up taking this one with the way they played in overtime and how Bennington played in overtime. Like I said before, I felt like once I saw Bennington perform the way he did in the crease, I'm like, there's no way the US is going to win and come away with this win because of the way he's playing. He just looked absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, not surprised Canada won. Disappointed that the US didn't win because this would have been a massive turning point for USA hockey because you get these guys for the US on the first major international stage since probably 10 years ago and USA Hockey is finally on the map. So it will be a massive turning point for them to try and win this. But certainly there's a possibility of them coming back next year in the Olympics and getting their revenge tour. But it's going to take a little while before that happens. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole situation unfolds with international play coming back officially to the Olympics in ice hockey in 2026. And you're gonna have more teams. So that's gonna be even more exciting to watch. Hopefully Russia would be in it, but no guarantees. But you're gonna be like Germany's gonna be fun to watch, and there's so many other teams that are gonna be so much more fun to watch. So this was just a really good kind of setting the stage tournament for that, and four key nations who are really good at producing talent, and you're gonna get even more of that in 2026 when they play at the Olympics in Milan. So that's gonna be awesome to watch.